people, some people aren't animal people. I'm a dog person. And I know the reason why I'm a dog person is because growing up in my house, the only thing I felt love from, honestly, was the dog. And
Wow.
so, that affects a person. I was about 18 years old. I was going to kill myself. I had a rifle. I was held it up to my head. I was going to shoot myself. I'm laying underneath the axle that's being held up by a jack on the passenger side. He gets inside to shut the truck off. When he did, the jack slipped out, and this 5 to 6 tons of steel dropped about, I don't know, a foot or whatever, and fell right through the middle of my body. When the truck fell through the middle of my body, blood shot out of my mouth. So it destroyed so much stuff on the inside on impact that blood came out of my mouth from inside out. I called out to Jesus and I just said, Lord, help me. And I remember saying it 2 times. In the end, I was thinner than my spine in the middle of my body because my L4 and L5 were both broken. Bruce had to come back. I got sucked backwards out of the tunnel. I'm looking from above. I can see the angels. I can see the lady slap me in the face. Now I know it's me.
So what do you tell people that say you are just dreaming it
Yeah.
and, hey, you've heard stories
Yeah.
about the tunnel and the light. And
Right.
so, I don't, I don't buy that. What do you tell people that kind of doubt
It's
that?
great. One detail that I already said.
What's the most important question you could ever ask yourself? How about this one? Is there a God? The answer to that question changes everything. If there is no God, is there even a right or wrong way of living? If there is no God, shouldn't I pursue as much happiness, love, and money as I can before I simply cease to exist? If there is no God, shouldn't something be able to fill this giant void inside my life? But what if there is a God? If that's true, why does he allow suffering? Does he really care about what happens to me? And if so, why doesn't he just reveal himself? If there is a God, will he answer me when I call out to him? Does he care about people? And does he really care about me? These kinds of questions are called existential, which simply means, why do I exist? The answer to that question will change the course of my life. And so, shouldn't I be asking it? Well, I want you to ask yourself these questions as you listen to today's life change story. My guest is zooming in all the way from Wisconsin, and he has the most amazing story, and I can't wait for you to hear it. I'm Eric Hutchinson, and this is the If Nothing Changes podcast. So, hey, new friend, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
This is Bruce Natta from Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin.
Well, it's nice to meet you in person, Bruce. I say in person, here we are on Zoom, but it's so amazing. I love technology and that we can visit with each other across the country. And so I'm so excited to hear your story. I've heard a little bit of it, but why don't you let the listeners know a little bit about where you're from? Tell us where you were born and raised.
Born and raised right here in the middle of Wisconsin, central Wisconsin. My wife as well. We lived here our whole lives. Basically, I moved away for a few years, like 3 years into Oklahoma, but bounced around Wisconsin. But this is where we're from.
Sure. How about your siblings? Do you have any brothers or sisters?
Yep, I have. My mom had 3 other children with another man. Got divorced, married my dad. I'm the oldest of those 3.
Okay, gotcha. So whenever you were growing up, your siblings were in the household with you. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was like 7 years, basically an only child for like 7 years until my next sibling was born.
Okay. So you were kind of the big brother then, right?
Yep, exactly.
All right. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the dynamic of your home growing up? Tell us a little bit what it was like growing up with with your parents, with your siblings. Just give us a little bit of a taste of what it was like in your home.
Well, we're rural. Live in a rural area. My mom and dad both would say they believe in God, but we didn't attend church just about ever. The only time growing up as a kid I ever went to church would have been on a Christmas or Easter. And I throw this in there and I say, if my mom and dad didn't get into too big of a drunken fight first, that we would miss Christmas or Easter. So my parents both when you grow up as a kid, you don't really think about other people so much. You think more about your own own thoughts, issues, wants, issues, whatever. You think about the stuff going on in your own life. So I didn't really think about my parents' life a whole lot, even though I knew their story. My mother was given away as an illegitimate child, raised by a grandma, sexually abused by people in that house, pregnant by 15, three kids by 18, married to an abusive guy. She divorces him, marries my dad. My dad's the middle of three children. My grandpa had gone away to World War II. They'd had a baby. He'd come back. My grandpa and grandma got in some kind of to do, separated. Grandma moved away, back in with her mom and dad. Grandma comes up pregnant. Grandpa thinks that my dad is a product of adultery. So bottom line is, both of my parents were raised in an atmosphere where they were not loved at all. So neither my mom or my dad. And so because those two people not getting love or affection, attention that they needed growing up, they then got married. And, so then we grew up in a family where my parents, I would say dysfunctional home. There was verbal abuse, physical abuse. My parents both medicated their wounds in different ways, different addictions. And so it was not an easy home to grow up in. There was, a lot of pain. And there's a saying that you can't give away something you don't have. And because my parents weren't loved physically, they weren't emotionally loved, growing up, they didn't have something they couldn't give us. And I didn't ever really realize that, but I struggled with suicidal thoughts as a young man because of, I think, the home that I grew up in. And I was about 18 years old. I was going to kill myself. I had a rifle. I was held it up to my head. I was going to shoot myself. And God stopped me. And the way he stopped me was, bottom line, I was mad at my parents and about the way we were raised. And God said they couldn't give you something they didn't have. And that's how he stopped me from killing myself. He said, your mom, dad couldn't give you something they didn't have. You can't even be mad at them. They didn't have it. Be mad for, feel bad for them because they didn't have it to give you because they were never given it. They're just like you, And so, again, it was that kind of dysfunctional type home where everybody was wounded and everybody was in a lot of pain. And it was every day,
Wow.
so that was the home we grew up in. And people, some people aren't animal people. I'm a dog person. And I know the reason why I'm a dog person is because growing up in my house, the only thing I felt love from, honestly, was the dog.
Wow.
And so, that affects a person.
Wow. Well, we're starting off heavy.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, that's your home. That's what you grew up. And I'm sure there are listeners that have, grown up in a similar background. And so, we have a saying at my recovery program that I'm involved in that says, hurt people, and
Exactly.
which is similar to what you were saying. They can't give away something they never had. And so I'll tell you what, so before we get to high school, it sounds to me like that you were longing to be loved, that you were longing for that, and it wasn't at the house. You didn't receive that like you wanted to. So where did that lead you in school? So you go to school. Were you were you confident in yourself at school? What did you believe about yourself, or were you withdrawn? I mean, did you have lots of friends? I mean, tell me a little bit about your school activity growing up.
So like you said, hurt people. I use that phrase all the time. And my dad was also a truck driver. My mom was an interpreter. At that point, I was the only child. They'd be gone for periods of time. And so they left me with some friends there to be babysat during the week, where I was repeatedly molested at that house over and over as a child for about a year and a half or so. And so, so how did it affect my school? So because I've been repeatedly molested, I'm in kindergarten. They say we're supposed to take naps. Nap time was when I got molested. I wouldn't take naps. And so I get held back in kindergarten because they say I'm disruptive. The whole reason why they said I was disruptive because I said I wouldn't take a nap every day because that's when I got molested. So they're thinking I'm a troublemaker, but I didn't want to go in the dark and take the nap. So it does. I mean, you think it, how would it be molested affect you? Well, right there, it got me held back in kindergarten. So, it affects everything. Your home life affects everything. And so going to school, I think I viewed myself as being shy and withdrawn. is the way I would have viewed myself. I'm always been kind of a solitary type person, a lone wolf type person. Don't trust people. People hurt you, so you just don't trust people. Stay away from them.
Did you believe in God at that time?
So, when I was 5 years old, after I'd been repeatedly molested, I went to one Sunday school my whole entire growing up as a kid. Only one time Sunday school. Grandma took me. The Sunday school teacher tells a story about Jesus hugging kids. The disciples get mad, say, "Get the kids out of here." Jesus rebukes them, says, "Let the children come unto me." The Sunday school teacher says, "This proves that Jesus loves kids." I was 5 years old. I had heard the word Jesus a million times. I thought it was a swear word, an adjective. I didn't know it was a real person. I didn't know about God. This guy told me about God, told me that Jesus was God, that Jesus loves kids. It felt great. We're calling this picture of a bearded guy hugging kids. And then all of a sudden he says, as Christians often do, he went too far and he said something like, "Yeah, Jesus loves kids so much that he protects them." And as soon as he said Jesus loves kids that he protects them, I remember putting the crayon back in the basket, pushing the piece of paper away as a 5.5-year-old kid and going, "It's a BS story. It's just like Santa Claus." I knew Santa Claus was fake. And I was the one telling all the other kids, "There's no Santa Claus. I'm not getting presents. You might be getting presents. And it might say Santa Claus, but it's not really from Santa Claus. You're dumb. Your parents are lying to you." Kindergarten, first grade, second grade. I enjoyed making other kids cry and tell them the truth. But because I wasn't going to get any presents, so I'm just sharing the pain, right?
To me, that's a really moment for you as a child, as that Sunday school teacher was talking to you, and you're like, "Yeah, Jesus, oh, wow, this sounds great." And then when he says, "Hey, he protects," you're like, "Wait a minute. He
Right.
didn't protect me.
Exactly.
He didn't protect me from all of this junk and crap that
Day
I
by
went
day by
through."
day by day.
Yeah. Yeah. So did that make you, did that, you're like, "Well, if that's Jesus, then I'm turning my back on him"? I mean, was it a conscious thing that, you know what, I'm not having any of this Jesus
Consciously.
thing? Yeah.
Yes, I consciously said it's a made up story like Santa Claus. And then fast forward 5, 6, 7, 8 months, a family came to visit our house. My dad was on the road driving truck. My mom was home. We the adults were in the kitchen drinking, getting drunk, whatever they were doing. Me and some other little kids were playing in the bedroom. I began to exhibit sexual behavior with one of the little kids as a 5-year-old. My mom came in and caught us. She beat me. She said, "You're gonna have to tell your father what I caught you doing," not knowing that I was acting out from being repeatedly molested for a year and a half. So this really bad night happens when my dad comes home. I'm literally afraid for my life. I'm in a dark room, terrified, and I just called out. And the story of what the Sunday school teacher said about Jesus came back to my head. So laying on the bed in the dark, I simply said a doubting Thomas. I didn't even know it was a prayer. I just said, "Jesus, if you're real, that story was real, come and hug me like you did those kids in that story. I need a hug." And I can tell you, I was picked up off the bed. I was given a hug. I felt love like I can't even describe. Liquid love. I call it liquid love. I can't even describe it. It's like being dipped in something you could touch. Like there was love on the outside, there was love on the inside. The crying went away, the fear went away. I passed out. I woke up the next morning, and I knew when I woke up the next morning, I said to myself, I looked out the window and I said, "There is something to this Jesus thing. I know what was going on. I know what happened. And I know what happened when I said, 'Jesus, if you're real, hug me.' I got a hug." So for me, it settled it. I knew Jesus was real, but I kept it as a secret. I didn't tell anybody because I don't have to admit that I had been molested and what I did because I was molested. So I just kept that secret to myself all those years. And actually, as time went on and I got older, I got more and more mad at God because I knew he was real. I knew he was love, but yet he left me there. He left me in that house. He left me with that pain. I just, so again, it was nice to get the hug. It was nice to know Jesus was real. It settled it. I've never doubted the reality of Jesus. I'm 50 some years old, and to this day, I've never doubted the reality of Jesus from that one hug. But it also, I've battled with a lot of anger at God because I know he's real. And it's like, if you know that he knows he's real and there's bad stuff that happening, it's easy to blame him.
Right. And that goes back to the age old question is, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? Why
I don't think I'm a good person, but just why does a good God allow bad stuff?
Well, why does God allow evil?
Yeah.
And of course, there's all kinds of answers. But when you're a kid, that doesn't help any. So that's wow. So it sounds to me like there was some, pent up anger. So did you have any friends? I mean, like, did you have a best friend that you hung out with? I mean, who did you? Tell me about that. I mean,
exactly. Grade school, one best friend through grade school. high school, basically, just a couple friends. So again, very, very solitary type, stick to myself kind of guy. Have a small group of closer friends, but that's about it.
So whenever we get into high school, many times that's when, if you want to call sowing the wild oats or
Mhm.
whatever, and sometimes there's substance abuse, as teenagers, we get the freedom of driving and going to
Yeah.
parties or whatever. Was any of that a part of that? So now you mentioned, being molested very
Yeah.
young. Did you ever tell anybody about that? And, or was that kept a secret? Did you internalize it? And where did that lead you?
Yeah. So again, like you said, you get into high school, you start making bad choices, decisions sometimes. So in my family, nothing was hidden. If my dad sold drugs, it was done in the open. It wasn't hidden. People did drugs and different, besides my dad had a lot of times drink a case of beer a day, but besides the illegal drugs or stuff that was around, none of that was ever hidden. And I mean, from little kid on, from like, 5, 6, 7, whatever, I have memories, thoughts of people doing drugs and doing things that I saw. So for me, what would people call as illegal drug realm, I didn't know was illegal or wrong. It was just normal life that wasn't hidden from me. But I found out as a young kid, don't tell anybody about it. But it was just normal life. So my mind doesn't look at it like, get to high school and find about drugs, because I knew about drugs as a little kid and I watched people get high and do stuff growing up. So it was all part of normalcy for me. I knew that people medicated their pain through the substance abuse. I was already as a young kid, and I watched different substances, the way they reacted to different people. And like the coke people scared me, and people that drank, sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're crappy. You just never know what you're going to get. But I watched, and there was a few people that smoked pot, and they're kind of just always the same, chill. And I remember thinking as a kid, that's probably what I'm going to do, because they seem stable. And so I uh, early in school picked it up. I'm not no reason to really go into the story, but I remember the first time I did it. I'd been physically abused. I did it to make the pain go away, and I picked it up and I never put it down for the next 20 years. For the next 20 years, I smoked pot from the time I got up in the morning till the time I went to bed at night, all day, every day
So was
for 20.
marijuana your
Yeah.
choice, kind of?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I drank, and I had, at a certain point, I got involved with cocaine, and I, to the point of a cocaine overdose that almost killed me. And I did pretty much every drug under the sun, all different drinking, all that. But the thing that I always come back to, always come back to was pot.
So earlier you mentioned it kind of led you into wanting to take your own life when you were 18 years old. So, what were the events that led up to that? Did you just have a bad day, or what was it that led to you wanting to take your life? And what did you think was going to happen after you took your life?
I wanted to go be with Jesus. That's it. Just end the pain, man. Just end the pain. And
So,
after, like I said, after you grow up like that, my parents were in daily pain, daily, daily, daily. And it just transfers. I mean, if they're daily hurt, daily in pain, and addictions and all the stuff, and it just transfers to the kids. And it's me and my siblings, and I see, how that, and I'm sure it was from their parents to them. It's just these generational curses that get handed down generation to generation to generation. So yeah, I mean, there was multiple times actually that I had thought about killing myself, because of that pain. And like you said, pent up anger. Yeah, after I've gone through some counseling, I found that people that were sexually abused as children, one of the main things they deal with is anger issues as an adult. And it's uh, sometimes it doesn't even make sense, like a PTSD thing where it'll just pop up and you go, wow, where did that anger flare up come from? It doesn't even make any sense at all. Well, counseling tells you PTSD or whatever, put the words on it, whatever you want to, whatever words a counselor, psychologist wants to put on it. But yeah, I mean, lots of people grow up in painful situations. My parents did, and me and my siblings did, and it definitely affects you. And so people are always looking for something to make the pain go away. And so I picked up smoking pot. I started selling pot while in high school, because I couldn't afford to smoke the amount of pot that I was smoking. So I had to sell it to get mine for free. And I did that. I did that through high school, and then it was coke. And I was always looking for the next thing to make the pain go away. And at a certain point, I met an atheist bartender. We started dating. We got an argument about God. I knew Jesus was real because he had hugged me as a kid. And she was saying God wasn't real. And so we argued for 6 hours. And I kept telling her, look, I know Jesus is real. And she's like, well, prove it. You can't prove it. And finally, I said, look, if I tell you the reason why I know Jesus is real, will you shut up? I don't want to talk about it anymore. And after 6 hours, she wore me down. I nicknamed her hostage negotiator. And so I told her about being hugged, as calling out and say, Jesus real, hug me and the whole thing. And so she ended up right after that. Well, I told her, she started crying. She had her own encounter with Jesus, this atheist bartender, accepted Jesus into her heart. She basically said the same thing I did. Jesus real, show me, prove it. He did. And she accepted Jesus, and we were dating. We got married pretty quick after that. She wanted to start going to church. So we started going to church. She ended up working at the church. And I joke all the time. I started dating atheist bartender, and then she turned into church lady from Saturday Night Live on me. So
Satan.
yeah, exactly that one. And so there's a lot more to that story I'm not going to go into, but bottom line, God put us together. We got married in a short period of time. And I was thinking, hey, I'm going to make the happy family I didn't have as a kid. It's going to be so great. I'm going to make this happy family. And I'm going to just, and I made her all these promises. Oh, baby, I'm going to quit selling drugs. I'm going to quit doing drugs. I'm going to, la, 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 la. All these promises. Within, a couple months of marriage, I realized I'm still miserable. I'm still completely wounded. I'm still hurt. And so Bruce logic says, wow, there must be something wrong with this woman because she didn't fix me. I thought she was going to fix me. And it's crazy now that I've been in ministry for, 16, 17 years, what it is. I can't tell you how many times, Eric, somebody going through divorce or just gone through divorce comes in and says, he never made me happy. She never made me happy. And they never do because they can't. Husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, if we put the responsibility of them trying to make us happy or fix our garbage, fix our junk, fix our emotional baggage, take it away. If we think they can do that, we put them in a no-win position. They can't do it. Only God can do it. And they'll let us down every time. And I think that's the reason why the divorce rate's the same in the church as outside the church, because we think somebody else is going to fix our junk, but they can't. They've got their own junk. And now you got your junk and their junk together. You guys got a lot of junk.
So you got married and you were 25. So I mean, right?
Yeah.
You got married.
Yep.
So you bring all this stuff in from your past,
plus her past.
So
Yeah.
what was your first years of marriage like? I mean,
fighting like cats and dogs, yelling, screaming, drunken, drug and alcohol fights. I mean, just craziness. I mean, it's only by miracle of God that we stayed together at all. And it was literally a miracle of God that we stayed together. We would not be together. I know it was God. And I was looking around. I was thinking there's something wrong with her. I literally thought there must be something wrong with her because I'm still hurt, and I thought being married was going to fix it. We're going to make this new family, but it's not. So, you just resign yourself like, okay, we're going to make the best of it. And then we decided we're going to have kids, and I didn't want to be a drug and alcohol parent like I grew up with. So I made all these promises, and I know what it's like seeing, people, be drunk or underneath the influence every day, and it not being hidden. And so anyway, I decided I didn't want to do that. But so to be different, I'd work my day at work, come home, pat the kids on the head, and, then go out and hide in my home garage every night, getting high, smoking pot, snorting coke, drinking whiskey, do whatever I'm doing all night long, come in the house, take a shower, pass out, get up in the morning, go to work, do it all over again. And so instead of me being high and doing drugs around my kids, I thought I'd be better by not doing it. But the problem was I was always doing it. So what I did was I separated myself from my kids. Wow. So they literally grew up with their dad hiding in the garage all the time,
Isn't it interesting, at least for me, it's interesting to observe after I've talked to just so many people about their testimonies that we end up repeating some of the same things that we hated when we were kids. Isn't that interesting?
It's so sick. It's such a sick cycle. I know.
Yeah.
I've talked about my siblings different times where we say, I said, I'll never do this. And it's exactly what you end up doing.
Yeah. So
we have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. We had 4 kids in 3 years because we have twin boys in the middle. So by the time I was in my early 30s, we had our 4 kids. And, just always looking for something to make myself. I love my kids. I mean, I wouldn't trade my kids for anything. I love my kids, but kids can't fill up a God-sized hole, just like a wife or a husband can't fill up a God-sized hole. So you can't hang your hat on that. But again, I just always looking for something to make myself feel better. And I'd exhausted everything the world had, everything that I thought could make me happy. And I think God, I don't know about you, Eric, but I think God has a sense of humor. And he knew there was only one thing left on my list that I thought could make me happy. I exhausted everything else, drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever, nothing else, money. I had believed this lie when I was a kid because I grew up pretty poor. I believed this lie that if you could make this certain amount, and I had literally had a certain six-figure number in my head. And I thought if you could make that six-figure number per year, you're going to have a fancy brand new house. You're going to have a fancy car. You're going to have fancy clothes. You're going to go on vacations. You are going to have arrived. You'll have respect. And I had that number in my head. And at 29 and a half years old, I was the foreman at a multi-million-dollar business in southern Wisconsin. The owners came in, fired the general manager for the place, the manager of our place. And I was the next in line. They had me fill in and temporary fill in until they could hire somebody. I filled in for 2 months, had turned the business around so much in 2 months that they said, no, you're the guy. So at 30 years old, I make this certain magic six-figure number I think is going to make me happy. I could tell you where I spent my 30th birthday. I was in a place called Kelowna, British Columbia, in this really expensive resort. I got trash bombed. I remember going back to the suite room, holding my phone with my getting my license out, and I was trying to see, is it really my birthday today? Did I really turn 30 today? And I was so drunk, I was looking between my phone and my license to add up the dates and all that to make sure. And I turned 30 that night in that place, and I was still miserable. And I remember thinking, man, we're in the process of getting a different house. We've already got a different car. We've already went on vacation. We already bought a bunch of stuff, and there's nothing changed. I'm still miserable. And that was the last thing I thought could make me happy. And it was such a sick feeling to realize the last thing that I thought could make me happy was still hollow. And it was like, I just thought, all right, just make the best of this miserable life.
So what was your job? I mean, what you were manager? Was this what kind of company?
I grown up being
yeah.
Diesel repairman, diesel engine repairman is what my dad specialized in diesel repair. So I grew up in a diesel repair shop. So anything that has a diesel engine in, we worked on.
Okay. So I have a question. You mentioned you having that long conversation with your now wife about about God and all of that stuff. So whenever you started having kids and you said, I mean, did you guys make any effort to go to church to ask God into any of that? I mean, tell me about.
Oh man, we were at church every time the door was open. My wife worked at the church. Our kids went to the school. I was one of the trustees of the church. I'd mow the lawn, do this, do that. I was on the council board. Yeah, we were totally involved in church.
So I'm hearing conflicting stories here. So was it a Jekyll Hyde thing? It's like, okay, we're going to church on Sunday. We're doing this, I'm doing this. But really, I was going to work. I was smoking pot. Were you?
It was both, man. I was going to work and smoking pot, and I'd go to church on Sunday morning.
Okay.
I'd go mow the lawn at church, smoke a joint before I did it.
Yeah.
I mean, I just would medicate, still drink on a Thursday or Friday night, go to church.
Yeah.
On Sunday morning. Absolutely.
Was your wife okay with all of that?
No, she didn't like it at all. Yeah, no, she didn't like it. But that's exactly what I was doing. So, dealing with the emotional baggage, the struggles, the stuff from childhood, going through counseling, going through Bible studies, God just kept drawing us closer, closer, closer. When I was 35 years old, God got me completely sober. So I'm 100% sober at 35. Illegal drugs and anything, nothing, no alcohol, no pot, no coke, no 100% sober. And that year we're leading small groups at our home. And I don't know if you remember when 40 Days of Purpose came out. Mm-hmm. So we did a 40 Days of Purpose group here at our house. We led it, one of the groups was from our church was here at our house, and we were the facilitators for that. And just going through that process. So at this point, I've been completely sober for a year, doing more and more actively involved in ministry. My wife's mom, she's the only child. My wife's mom got sick. My wife wanted to move back to our hometown area. I was running that large business in southern Wisconsin. So we moved back to our hometown area, 2.5, 3 hours away where we're at right now, bought 40 acres of woods, built a brand new house in the middle of the 40 acres. I took a service truck. I built a service truck. I put $100,000 of tools on the truck. And I started my own mobile diesel repair service. So instead of having, a shop with all that overhead and having to have the capital to build the shop and, all that, I just instead did a mobile diesel repair service. So I would go on site and do on site diesel repair. So that's the business I started.
So this business, so you went from the corporate manager of this company, and now you've started your own mobile repair.
Moved back home.
Okay, mobile repair, and then so you were 2 years into that, and then your wife. It sounded like you guys started getting involved in church. You started giving.
Well, we had already been involved in church for years, but it was just a baby step, closer and closer to God. It took a long time before 35 when God got me 100% sober.
Okay. So you're sober, but are you still dealing with some stuff inside, or are you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. But not acting out on any addictions, but still dealing with the junk and the garbage inside. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we were going through that. And like I say, it was a year later when I turned 36. That was the year that the accident happened.
Okay. So why don't you lead me into that event, that day, that night? What happened to you?
I was working at a logging camp on a logging truck about an hour south of our home. It was a 3-day job, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Got to the end of the day Thursday when I was supposed to be done. I was called into this place because it was a Peterbilt logging truck that had a coolant leak. They had their own mechanic. I worked with him. I'd known him since I was young. So me and Leonard, this other mechanic, we worked on it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It was leaking coolant. So after we did the repair, in order to test the repair, I had Leonard start the truck. So that now the truck is in this big diesel repair shop, their shop. My service truck is backed up to it. It's running 15 or 20 minutes to test our repair and make sure it's fixed. I'm putting my tools away. I'm just about to leave. Leonard taps me on the shoulder. He said, "Hey, before you go, would you look at one more thing?" I remember looking up the clock. It was 6:10 p.m. I'd left my house that morning. It was an hour drive between here and there. And I was looking at the clock and I'm thinking, man, it's going to be a 13-hour and 10-minute day if I leave right now. And he wants me to look at something else. And I was used to working 12-hour days. That's pretty common what I did. But, like I said, I'm already a 13-hour and 10-minute day and he wants me to work later. So I didn't want to answer him. So I'm looking at the clock. He's like, hey, he could read my mind. He knew what I was thinking. He's like, no, you don't have to stay late. He said, I just want you to diagnose it. There's another dirty spot on the engine, big Caterpillar, yellow engine with a black dirty spot. He goes, I know it's seeping oil. You diagnose where it's coming from. We'll order the parts. I'll schedule to come back later to fix it. Or maybe it's something simple and you could tell me what to do. So if you were anybody listening today, if you're to look underneath one of these big trucks from the front to the back, there's a big chrome bumper, plastic bumper in the front, but there's that little bit of space between the bumper and the ground. If you were to get on your knees in the front of the truck, look from the front to the back, you'd see the lowest thing to the ground is the front axle. And so there's just a little bit of space between the bottom axle and the ground. Leonard had jacked up that front axle and removed the front wheel so that we could go underneath and do the repair work.
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt you, but I just want the listeners to know that this is a semi truck. I mean, this is with the trailer, 18-wheeler. I mean, this is not a pickup truck, right? This is a full blown semi truck.
Yeah. Full blown, what they would call Class 8 truck. It's as big of a semi truck as you see anywhere on the road.
Okay.
Yep. So it's got a big steel I-beam that goes from one side of the left to the right. That it's the front axle that the steer tire is attached to. And it's the lowest point. So Leonard had put a jack underneath that axle on the passenger side to remove the passenger side wheel. He's going to put that wheel back on Friday morning and the air cleaner. That's all that was left to do to the truck. The passenger side front wheel and the air cleaner. Two things he had taken off. He's going to put them back on. So there's a creeper. A creeper is a tool that mechanics use to go underneath vehicles. I laid on it. I went underneath the truck. I went underneath that axle. That axle has 5 to 6 tons of weight on just it. So 10 to 12,000 pounds of weight just on the two front tires. I'm laying underneath the axle that's being held up by a jack on the passenger side and the tires holding up on the driver's side. I say to Leonard, go ahead and shut the truck off. I'm laying right there. He gets inside to shut the truck off. When he did, the jack slipped out and this 5 to 6 tons of steel dropped about, a foot or whatever, and fell right through the middle of my body where I happened to be stopped underneath the truck. Basically between the bottom of my ribs and my pelvic is where that axle fell all the way. I'm laying in the middle of the truck, front to rear, parallel with the frame rails. And so the engine is directly above me. So when the truck fell me, the axle came across my belly from the left to the right in that soft spot. So when this 10 to 12,000 pounds of weight slips off the jack and hits the cement. Eric, I can't tell you how loud of an explosion noise it sounded like, just as metallic on cement, big explosion noise. But there was this liquid noise that I heard it, and it was because of liquid in me. When the truck fell through the middle of my body, blood shot out of my mouth. So it destroyed so much stuff on the inside on impact that blood came out of my mouth from inside out. I called out to Jesus and I just said, Lord, help me. And I remember saying it 2 times. I looked down on the left side of my body. The jack is slipped out on the left side of the truck. The axle's on the ground. The passenger side fuel tank is caved in. The passenger side of the front bumper's on the ground. And I look, and there's about an inch of space between the bottom of the axle and the cement right on the left side of my body. So I know that my body's approximately an inch thick. On the left side, I looked to my right, and there's maybe 2 inches of space between the bottom of the axle and cement. In the end, I was thinner than my spine in the middle of my body because my L4 and L5 were both broken. So anything in the middle was, spleen, pancreas, all the stuff was crushed, small intestines. 5 places major arteries were severed. I mean, it was horrible, horrible pain. He never did shut the truck off. The jack slipped before he shut the truck off. So he gets down in the truck. I'm looking out from underneath the bottom of the bumper because my head is just underneath the bottom of the bumper. He's looking from the outside looking in, and I'm from the bottom looking out, and our eyes are locked. And he wanted to shock when he saw that my body was basically crushed in half because the axle acted like a blunt guillotine that basically crushed my body in the middle in half. So he's looking at me and I'm looking at him, and he wanted to shock and he froze. And I just remember begging him to call 911, and he wasn't moving. And I just kept saying it, Leonard, call 911, please, please. But he wasn't moving because he was in shock. Finally, he shook out of it. I could hear him yelling on the phone. He said, somebody's crushed in half, send help. He went and got the jack. It's a volunteer fire department, as you'd expect, in the middle of a remote area for logging business. He went and got the jack. He couldn't put the jack underneath the axle to get it up off my body because it's on the ground. So the closest thing he could do, he put it against the spring, one of the suspension components. But the problem is it's curved. You don't ever want to jack something up on a curve because the jack could slip. So I'm looking at it. I'm watching him jack it up. I'm watching the jack slip. And I'm begging him, no, don't jack it up there. It's just going to slip and fall on me again and hurt me. He's telling me it's the only place he's got. And the jack has just got a little handle. You pump with each little pump. It just goes up just a little bit. Finally, it caught. It started going up in the air. Once he got the truck off my body, I was able to look down, and Eric, what I saw was my work uniform went to the edge of my ribs where the pockets ended and went straight back towards my spine, followed along my spine, and then came back up with my pelvic. So literally there was this flat spot across the middle, and it was so surreal. There was nothing to compare it to in real life. As I looked at it, the only thing that my brain could compare it to, and this sounds goofy, but the only thing I could compare it to was cartoons as a kid. When Wile E. Coyote gets run over by Acme truck or the rock lands on, that's the only thing of a body that had a flat spot. That's the only thing my brain could pull up looking at it, that it's cartoonish. That was literally thought, this is cartoonish. And the next thought was, nobody can live. You should not be able to look at your own body flat across the middle and still be able to see it. You're going to die. That was the next thought. So I'm yelling for him to get me off front of the truck because I was afraid the jack was going to slip. It's going to fall on me again. When he jacked the truck up off my body, I had this horrible pain, but when he jacked it off my body, incredible weakness took over. We found out later that was because of the 5 places that the major arteries were severed. I'm now bleeding out internally. He wouldn't move me. I begged him to pull me out. I obviously had a back injury. People have been told not to move somebody with back injury. So he wouldn't do it. So I reached back. I grabbed the bottom of the chrome bumper back here behind my head, took everything I had. I dragged myself out to now my shoulders and arms are sticking out from the front bumper. I look underneath the truck and my legs were underneath the axle. So if the jack slips, it's going to come down and break my legs. And I put my palms on the bumper. And I thought if I could just do one more push and straighten out my arms, that'll be enough to get my legs past the axle so that if it falls, it'll miss my legs. And when I tried to do that last push, I couldn't do it. And I fixated on my right bicep for some reason, and my arm was shaking wildly out of control. And the thought in my mind was, man, I could do a lot of pull-ups at that time in my life easily. And I couldn't even do this, like not even a half of a pull-up or whatever, because it wasn't even my whole body weight. It was just trying to roll it out. And that's when I realized I couldn't breathe. Both of my lungs were collapsed from when the truck had fallen on me. And so right at that moment, as I'm trying to get myself that last push so it doesn't fall on my legs, I'm doing this, trying to suck in another breath, but it wouldn't come. I couldn't get that next breath. And my heart is racing because my body's in shock. And so my heart is pounding. I could hear it pounding my ear. And the craziest thing is I heard my own heart stop. It sounded just like starting off, just like when you shut off a big engine and you're standing next to it and you can really hear it. It just was a bup, 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 bup. And at the last beat of the heart, my spirit left my body. I went up to the roof of the garage, 14, 15, 16 feet inside. And let me just stop right here and say, if anybody that's listening right now or in the future, if you're a Christian, don't be afraid of dying. The day we die as Christians, I believe is going to be the best day of our life. I went up in the garage and I felt perfect peace. The Bible talks about peace that surpasses mental understanding. It's the peace that I've wanted my whole life. So I was up in this peace that I've wanted my whole life, looking down from above, having a party in the ceiling all by myself is the only way I can describe it. It feels, I say this, but it doesn't make, I guess people don't, it's hard to come up with words, but it was like being able to breathe for the first time in my life. I don't know even how to say it. But anyway, I'm in the ceiling, I have a party looking down, completely disconnected from the accident scene. I didn't know the guy in the truck was me. I didn't know anything. I just see this guy in the truck. I'm watching Leonard, the other guy I was working with, whom I've known since I was very young. He's on his knees. He's running his fingers through my hair. He's crying. He's apologizing. I can hear him saying stuff. I should be the one that's dead, not you. All the volunteer fire department people are all standing around quietly, respectfully talking. They're not going to do CPR because I have a massive chest injury. So I quit breathing. They stood back. They called med flight. I'm watching off from above. And Leonard is on his knees, like I said, right in the middle of the truck. They haven't pulled me out. I'm still just the top half of me sticking out from the front bumper. And no heartbeat, no pulse. And there's a huge angel on each side of my body, about 2 feet taller than Leonard. So that made him about 8 feet tall based on a 6 foot tall Leonard. They reached over to put their hands in the middle of my body where it's crushed flat. And so watching from above, I said, oh, look, those angels are down there to help that guy. That's nice. They were very muscular, white, shining robes, long hair. Angels, I mentioned 290 sometimes in the Bible. Sometimes they have wings, sometimes they don't. These didn't. They had long hair. They, like I say, just big guys with white, shining robes, touching me in the middle. And I'm just watching from above, listening to everybody talk. And then in the back of the garage, everybody came from the main entrance. But then this red-haired lady named Shannon and an older guy came in the back door, came up the driver's side of the truck. I'm watching it all from above. She got down between the angels. She's feeling for a pulse. She couldn't find one. There was a big guy, from my point of view, looking down. There's a big guy in the passenger's corner in what I call farmer bibs, light-colored gray bibs with the blue stripe. He had his arms crossed, little guy next to him. The big guy said to her, it's too late. He's already passed. She ignored him. She kept feeling for a pulse. She says, what's his name? Leonard says, Bruce Vanetta. And the lady starts slapping the guy in the face, saying, Bruce Vanetta, come back, come back. Everybody quit talking. All the first responders. And looked at this lady like, what are you doing? She got louder. She got louder. She kept slapping. My spirit came out of the ceiling, came down, and all of a sudden really fast, came into my body. My heart starts miraculously. No CPR, no medicine. I'm looking at this woman, and I go from feeling the best I've ever felt in my life to now feeling the worst I've ever felt in my life. From perfect peace to absolute horror, pain. And I was like, I don't want this at all. It hurts too bad. And when I said, I don't want this, my heart stopped. My spirit left my body. I went right back. It went right back in the roof of the garage. But this time, a tunnel opened up going out of the roof, like at a 45-degree angle with a bright light at the end, that I know was heaven. And I know Jesus was there waiting for me, and I was excited to go meet him. So I got in the tunnel, and I was going to heaven to meet Jesus, happy, excited. But somewhere behind me, I could hear this. Bruce tried to come back. I got sucked backwards out of the tunnel. I'm looking from above. I can see the angels. I can see the lady slap me in the face. Now I know it's me. My spirit comes back into my body. And when it comes back in, horrible pain again. And that's when God spoke to me. I didn't see him. It was a voice. He was very calm. That struck me. He was very calm. It was, everything is chaotic around me. All the people running around, they're freaking out. They don't even know what to think. And yet this calm voice says, if you want to live, you're going to have to fight, and it's going to be a hard fight. That's it. That's all he said. And it took no time to think about the answer to that. I'm like, no, screw it. I don't want to live. And I stopped. And my spirit left. I went up into the roof of the garage. And, I could see the angels from above, but when I got prayed back in, when that lady, she was a 2-month-old baby Christian, I didn't tell you that, but Shannon, 2-month-old baby Christian, was praying me back in and out. I had seen angels from above, but when I got back in my body, I couldn't see them with my flesh eyes, and it scared me because I was thinking, I really need them. Where are they? Why did God take the angels away? So when I said, no, I don't want to, he says, if you want to live, you're going to have to fight. It's going to be a hard fight. I said, no, my heart stops. I get in the roof. I get in the tunnel. I go towards the light. And the third and final time, Shannon prays me back. My spirit comes back into my body. Again, horrendous pain. She's looking me in the face. She says, mister, you're on the verge of life and death. What do you have to fight for? Do you have a wife? Do you have kids? And I knew right in that moment, it wasn't later, right then I knew that God was talking through the woman, and he used her to remind me that I had a wife and I had 4 kids, because it was just up to me. Man, I'm out of here. That's what I've wanted my whole life. That's what I wanted my whole life. I'm out of here. And it felt amazing. And I knew it was going to feel like that. And, but she said, what do you have to fight? Do you have a wife? Do you have kids? I thought of Lori for the first time after the accident and the kids, because the pain and the trauma was so crazy. You didn't think any of that. And now she says, what do you have to fight for? You got to fight. You have a wife, you got kids. I thought of them. And she said, don't close your eyes, stay here. They ended up med flighting me to our state's biggest trauma center, worked on me several hours. The doctor came out. He got called in from home, the head of trauma, told my wife he had never seen any body traumatized so badly and make it. He said, there's no way he's going to live. I don't expect him to live through the hour. So my church lady wife and some people from church gathered together, and they decided, one of them came up with the idea that they should pray thank you for every 30 minutes of life, because the doctor said I wasn't going to live an hour. So all night long, every 30 minutes I was alive, they gave God thanks for 30 more minutes of life. The next morning, they went back in. They operated on me on and off all week. They kept me in induced coma for several weeks. It was literally several miracles in the hospital for me to be here all these years later. I mean, miracle after miracle after miracle for me to literal miracles for me to be here and be alive. So, I mean, it was God doing miracle after miracle.
Yeah. What an amazing story. And, you know, I've heard near-death stories before, but this has got to take the cake. But so what do you tell people that say, you were just dreaming it, and, you know, hey, you know, you could hear it subconsciously, the people talking to you and stuff like that. Yeah. You were just making up this dream, and you've heard stories about the tunnel and the light. And so, I don't buy that. What do you tell people that kind of doubt that?
It's great. One detail that I already said, I was above, 2 people came in the wrong door, the back door, the red-haired lady and the gray-haired guy. So a year later, when I got to the hospital, I went to the volunteer fire department. I called up and I said, can I come to the meeting to say thank you? I got the chief on the phone. He says, yeah, we do a monthly meeting, come such and such day, such and such time. So I show up. He hides me in a room as a surprise, starts the meeting, invites me out. I come out. There's 30 people in the room of a volunteer fire department. This is like a year and a month later from the accident, maybe a year and 2 months. I go around the room of 30 people. I picked out 8 of the 10 people who came to the scene of the accident over a year earlier. And then I picked out the red-haired lady and the gray-haired guy, and I said, you guys came in the back door. Everybody else came in the front door in front of 30 people. Why did you come in the back door? I've been in that job site more than once. Take my truck in and out the blacktop driveway, in and out the front. But you came in the back door. Why? They had to think about it because it had been a year. And they're like, what? And they thought about, like, oh, yeah, we drove by, missed the driveway, saw the flashing lights. There was a secondary gravel driveway that come up to the back of the shop, and that's why we came to the back door. At this point, no heartbeat and no pulse, according to them, for several minutes. So if I've got no heartbeat and I've got no pulse for several minutes, and I tell them what door they came in, tell me that I was having a dream. You tell me I was having something I thought. No, because I told 2 people what door they came in, and there was 30 people as witnesses. So no, it was real.
And there's no way you could have seen that.
Yeah,
there's no way you could have seen that. You were laying on your back. So
right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. That's amazing.
So I mean, right there, that one little detail is proof I was up there.
That's amazing. I mean, when you have something like that happen, do you ever say, gosh, does that change your purpose at all? Does that change the, you know, your the direction of your life? I mean, here you were a, you know, diesel mechanic, and, you know, so where did that lead you?
So what it did for me was we started Sweetbread Ministries January 1st, 2008. My last operation was actually December, the month before of 2007, a year and a month after the accident. And so I went from being a successful business owner to going into ministry. And I just like this, I travel around and I share the accident, what God did. I call out, Lord, help me. He sent 2 angels. He sends this lady to bring me back to life. He sends a guy from New York to pray for me in the hospital, or another miracle happens. Just miracle after miracle after miracle. And we already spent a bunch of time in my background. My story is a story of mercy. Mercy means not getting the punishment we deserve. And God says his mercies are new every day, not just Sunday morning for Christians. His mercies are new every day. So every day he doesn't give us the punishment we deserve. And God showed me his mercy by sending the angels, by sending the lady to bring me back to life. I'd been called to ministry, literally. And we started the ministry, and I travel around. And so people say, oh, you had this great God experience. Now I'm sure your faith is to the moon. Well, I don't doubt the reality of God. I haven't since Jesus hugged me as a 5-year-old. I still at times battle with mental struggles about the goodness of God. And I still have, other issues that I deal with. Has it made me a perfect person? No. Do I still have anger issues? Yeah. Do I still have a potty mouth sometimes? Yeah. I mean, there's things I know that I do. I know God doesn't want me to do. Different thoughts that come to mind, whatever. And so having this experience didn't turn me to a perfect person, a perfect guy. In fact, I think really, that just shows more of God's mercy.
So what do you tell people that say, yeah, but you were sexually molested when you were a kid? Yeah, all of these bad things happened to you. I mean, why would a good God do that?
Yeah, well, see, what I've come to is this. God gives us free will. He's given us free will. He wants good things for us. He desires good things for us, but he also gives people free will. So he gave people free will that hurt my parents. He gave my parents free will that hurt themselves and us. He gave me free will that's hurt myself. And, he gives everybody free will, and we make choices. And he says the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I came that you might have life that's full. So we know who the author of good things is. It's God. We know who the author of bad things is. It's the devil. Why does he allow it? He has to allow bad because he allows free will. Sometimes he miraculously steps in and, calms the storm, just like we read in the Bible. And sometimes the storm rages on and he says, I will not leave you. I will not forsake you. I am sitting right here next to you, and you will feel my peace. And we all want the storm to go away instantly. That's what human nature tells us. But yet sometimes God says, storm's going to rage, but I'm going to be right here, and you're going to be okay.
If you could wrap up your story in 60 seconds, what is the message that you want listeners to hear?
Really it comes down to that verse. In this world, you're going to have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world, Jesus says. So the main thought, what I want people to walk with, God is still alive and well. He's still in the miracle business. He hears our prayers. He might not always answer the way we want him to answer, but he's listening, and he promises to answer for our best. Romans 8:28, we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and called according to his purpose. So, I mean, he's got a plan for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not harm, plans to give you hope in the future, he tells us Jeremiah. So he's got these good plans. He wants good for us. Does good always happen? No, there's free will from us and other people that makes bad happen. But he says, even in the middle of the bad, I'm there with you. In the hospital, pain was so horrible, I couldn't stand it. I'd call to God in the middle of the night, Jesus, I need you. He would show up in a presence that I could feel, that was palpable, that I could touch almost. And the pain was still there, but he gave me a peace that was stronger than the pain. I don't know how else I'll describe it. So the peace that he brings overcomes the stuff that we deal with. Here's the thing. Oftentimes, I'm probably the biggest skeptic in the room. And so it's my personality. It's who I've been since I've been a little kid. I've been basically trained not to trust anybody. And so I'm a skeptic. I think I'm as much a skeptic as anybody's a skeptic. So when somebody has a problem with saying, look, I can't believe in God, I can understand. It's like, okay, that makes sense to me. I get it. I literally get that. Because that's the way I think too. So it's okay. I get that. I would just encourage those people, look, God is bigger than our doubts. And when I challenge anybody that says, I don't believe in God, I challenge them to say, look, prove it. Show me you're real. God's bigger than our skepticism. God's bigger than our doubts. And I think if somebody really is open enough to say, God, if you're real, show me, he will. I mean, I guess there's still a lot of skeptic in me, but I know this. I know Jesus is real. I know he's love. I felt his love. And I know I don't deserve it. So I think that's my story. It's a story of mercy. And I'm literally the last guy that would deserve it. So if he'd do it for me, I think he'd do it for anybody.
Bruce, thanks so much for sharing your life change story with us. Hey, if you are listening today and you have had doubts about God, maybe you don't believe that he even exists. Or maybe you think that he's just too big to even care about you. That's a lie. Not only does he exist, but he has a plan for your life. That doesn't mean that you won't have problems. In fact, Jesus said in John 16:33, "In this world you will have many trials and sorrow, but take heart, because I have overcome the world." Jesus Christ can give you purpose and peace, just like he did for Bruce. However, if nothing changes, nothing changes. See you next time. Hey, if you are still listening and you liked this podcast, I want to encourage you to listen to previous episodes because they will help to inspire change in your life. Also, if you like what you hear, please leave a positive review because it helps to bring this podcast to others. But no matter what, may God bless you and may God bring positive change to your life.